Welcome, Leo, to the month of July 2018. I'm Megan of North Star Astrology, and this is another general transits reading for those of you born with your sun, moon, and or rising signs in the fifth zodiacal sign of Leo, the lion, or lioness. And this is the glyph symbolizing the head and the tail. And your naturally residing house is the fifth house of romance and creativity. And at the start of the month, your ruling planet, the sun, is posited or transiting through your 12th house of the subconscious mind and dreams. So you may start out feeling very dreamy and maybe even wanting to be calmer and go a bit within and not really be out and about or out there showing your flamboyant self. However, on July 1st, Venus, which is also in your sign of Leo, in your first house of the self and body, opposes the moon in your opposite sun sign of Aquarius, with this 180 from your first house of the self and body, the self, yourself, and the seventh house of others or significant others and relationships. So you will be able to emotionally come to an awareness of the love of yourself, as well as possibly a newfound love with assertion toward others. Then on July 4th, Independence Day, Pluto sextiles the moon. When the moon goes into your 8th house in Pisces and makes a 60-degree flowing and pleasant aspect or angle to Pluto in Capricorn. So now from the 6th house to the 8th houses, you now have the ability to emotionally transform what it is in regards to your 6th house of work, health, and service given. More than likely your health, or possibly, well that's not in opposition with this sextile, but and at any rate, because it starts out with Mercury and Venus, you will be thinking about your health in terms of this pleasant sextile. Then on the following day, or in, a couple of more days, the last quarter moon happens in your 9th house of higher education and law, in Aries, the other fire sign. And that last quarter moon happens at 14 degrees, 13 minutes. And then on the following day, Venus, here's where I got messed up earlier. Venus then trines your Venus, the Venus in your sun sign of Leo, from your first house to your ninth houses, this very harmonious trine from the love planet in your sign of Leo, in your first house of the self and body, now harmoniously trines the moon. And so you may very well take a trip overseas, as the ninth house also deals with long distance travels. However, it also might or may be the love of learning, the love, emotional love, and or spiritual love of your higher self versus just your physical self, or understanding the mind, body, soul connection. Then on July 9th, Venus squares the moon. Once the moon goes into your 10th house of career and the ego, or public standing and reputation. So now, 3 houses away, 3 signs away, you have a bit of a challenge or an emotional impetus and or drive somewhat, because this square gives you that the 90-degree square gives you that drive to love what you do in your career. But just don't take it too far, and don't be egotistical about it, and temper yourself and be humble with this square. Then on July 10th, Venus then leaves your sign of Leo and enters Virgo in your second house of money and what you value. And also on July 10th, the moon goes into your 11th house of friendships, goals, and wishes, and squares Neptune in Pisces. Now notice both are mutable signs. But however, Pisces, or Neptune, now in Pisces, and the moon in Gemini in your 11th, so from your 11th house to your 8th house, you now have the possibility of emotionally squaring up details with other people's resources. However, don't be deceived by promises that may be too good to be true. If something seems too good to be true, listen to your gut feeling. Then the new moon happens on July 13th, as well as something that is very significant for all of us, but definitely will be affecting you the most, is the partial solar eclipse in Cancer But because you rule the sun, or because the sun rules you, Leo, this then, with having a new moon, the sun and the moon in your neighboring sign of Cancer, and having this, by the way, this is the glyph of the partial solar eclipse in the ephemeris from the years 2000 to 2050. And so having this partial solar eclipse will bring you deep emotional changes significantly to shine on what it is that maybe you're needing to fetter out of your subconscious mind. Say, for instance, therapy, if you've needed some kind of therapy. Well, however, also being that you have your north node of the moon also transiting your first house in your sign of Leo, this stands for fulfillment wherever the north node is positioned. So not only is this very beneficial for you, this is also, all of it ties in as this is the circle of life. However, as I was saying just a second ago, this is definitely a good time for you to seek out counsel on things that have been troubling your subconscious mind. Anything that might be bothering you. Then, on July 14th, the moon goes into and conjuncts your first house in the moon conjuncts Mercury, also in your sign of Leo. So now you have the ability to really emotionally state and communicate very eloquently and very forthrightly what it is that you really want to get across. But as I said, just don't run roughshod or temper that, and be mindful of others', in other words, also be the listener, because this is the naturally residing Aries or Arian house, so it can cause you to be a bit impulsive, impatient in communication, as well as fiery, but not in a bad way. Conjunctions are cool, and it's not like a dissonance where there's sort of off-kilter signs that are next door to each other. And then on July 17th, the sun sextiles the moon. So now from your 12th to your second houses of money and what you value, to your 12th house of the subconscious mind and dreams, now with the practical moon sign of Virgo, with this pleasant sextile to your sun, or the sun, in Cancer, you now have a very pleasant ability to tap in. Notice this is the symbol for the soul, in the personality, within. You now have the ability to emotionally tap in to what it is that you value, as well as what you can earn in your earning power. Then, on July 19th, the moon goes into your third house of communications and squares the sun. So now and this becomes a first quarter moon. So, and that happens at 27 degrees Libra. Where is it? 27 degrees Libra, 5 minutes. So first quarter moon squaring the sun. So now from the 3rd to the 12th, notice there's 3, 6, 9, 12. And that it's like quadrants, as they are known as. And the pi segments are like a process as you go round and round. And however, with this square from the sun to the moon in your third house of communications, there may be a little bit of frustration, maybe even a little bit of anxiety, as the sun is still in the 12th house of Pisces, and Pisces is somewhat of like a worrier, just like its opposite sign Virgo. So here we have this tie-in with a little bit of anxiety with this square, but don't let that trouble you. Then on July 22nd, the sun leaves Cancer and enters your sign of Leo. So any of you having your birthday in the latter part of July, happy birthday to you. And so notice how you are ruled by the sun. And now that the sun is entering your sign, you have that much more energy and light. As here, this I've pointed out, Cancer ruled by the moon. And what I mean by light is like how I love how they said the light of the world. You know, you will be almost, for instance, the light of the party. I just made that up, but the life of the party. Okay, once the sun comes into your first house of the self and body. Also, the sun will then end up trining the moon. Wait a minute. On July 22nd, when the moon goes into Sagittarius in your 5th house of romance and creativity, you now will have this very harmonious trine from your sun, now in Leo, the fire sign, mutable, and you are fixed, meaning stable and, almost stolid or sometimes stubborn. But then too, this is, as I pointed out, a very harmonious trine with your emotions in check. With anything you do or will be doing creatively and romantically. Okay, and then on July 24th, Mercury trines the moon. Is that right? Yeah, before the moon then will end up. So your ability to communicate flamboyantly, because Mercury has been in Leo all this time in your first house of the self and body, is harmoniously trining or making a 120-degree flowing energy aspect to the moon in Sagittarius. Then, however, Mercury goes retrograde 2 days later on July 26th. So here's where you have to be careful with any documents concerning yourself. Anything that deals with what you're dealing with, in other words. Then the moon conjuncts Pluto in Capricorn in your 6th house of health and work. Then finally the full moon. And as you see or have seen, the moon came full circle, and the full moon happens in Aquarius, your opposite sun sign. And at that point, on July 27th, there becomes the total lunar eclipse. So you may end up eclipsing something out. I don't want to be negative, but you may end up asking for a divorce, especially with the full moon opposing your sun now in Leo, with your courage to have the sun in Leo. Or you may be asking someone's hand in marriage. But usually when there's an eclipse, it's eclipsing something, either new or old. In other words, in or out. So this total lunar eclipse is going to be pretty amazing for most of us. And then finally on July 29th, Mercury opposes the full moon. So, again, you'll be able to express yourself quite fully, especially with the total lunar eclipse. However, it actually might make you kind of shy away and a little bit. Only a little bit. However, I failed to mention again, Jupiter, since it was retrograde, will be going direct the day before the total lunar eclipse. So with this directness, it could be a directness in your home. So maybe there's something that you might be saying or already are intending or preparing to say that might help you or open new pathways for you in the coming months, as these solar and lunar eclipses last 6 months into the future. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this reading. I hope you'll give it a like, thumbs up, comment down below and or subscribe. And thank you for looking up upon the North Star. And have a happy 4th of July and a happy birthday. And I'll see you in August.